shape. The solution is
red wine. And water.
What's up, guys?
Hello,
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much to the People's Forum for hosting us. Thank you to, give them a...
Yeah. Woo, we love the People's Forum.
Yeah.
Best space in New York.
Yes. And thank you to Breakthrough News and the Empire Files and the Katie Halper Show for co-sponsoring this event. So we're going to get this show started. I'm going to introduce the lovely lady sitting next to me. To the left, not politically, just physically, we have Abby Martin.
But also politically.
No, but I'm not saying she's to the left of us.
Oh,
She's
okay,
on the
yeah,
left.
no,
Spoiler alert,
I take
she's
it
on the
back.
left, yeah.
Oopsies.
So on the left,
Ultra leftist.
equally,
I haven't even had wine yet.
I know, equally on the left as us, is Abby Martin, who is the host and producer of the Empire Files. She's also the director of the amazing documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom.
Thank you so much.
And the forthcoming documentary, Earth's Greatest Enemy. Earth's Greatest Enemy. Okay, there you go. There you have it. Which I can't wait to see. And then to my right, physically but not politically, is Rania Khalek, who is the host of Dispatches with Breakthrough News with Eugene Puryear, and she is a journalist based in Beirut.
Woo, yay Beirut!
And of course, the great Katie Halper, host of the Katie Halper Show, host of Useful Idiots, and the upcoming documentary, Commie Camp, which I can't wait to see.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for braving the snow to come out here in this packed house.
Seriously.
We are truly honored to share this space with all of you.
So I thought first I wanted to ask you, Rania, more than anyone else here, if
Let's get serious.
Yeah, let's get serious
Let's get
for a
serious.
second. Like, we're going to be
I'm ready.
joking around, but we should
Bring
be
it.
serious.
Yeah.
So before starting, of course, I need you to condemn Hamas. Will each and every one of you condemn Hamas?
All together.
We're not going to start condemn Hamas. Yeah, we can't do the show until
can't
each
start,
and every
you
one
guys.
of you. Yeah.
Everyone has to, we have
it's
to
law
go.
now.
Yeah.
It's the law.
It might take 2 hours, but I mean, this
but
isn't
we're
necessary.
fine. If that has to be
It's
what the entire
obligatory.
show is dedicated to, that's okay. All right. Okay, great.
Yes.
Condemn the mainstream media.
Great
Good.
answer.
I agree
By the
with
way,
that.
someone's phone is going off, which is fine, but it's a good reminder to shut your phones off, please. That sounded very taskmasterly. So let's see. There's so much terrible news out there, right? I think we wanted to start off with something positive.
Makes sense.
So let's take a look at Yemen. So it's saying make it a major war. We don't care. We don't care. Make it a major war. A lot of people.
Yeah, I think they're mad at someone.
Yeah.
I think they're angry with someone. I think they're angry with,
I love this song.
This was a way to welcome in 2024.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
So Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like, you got to appreciate that. So this was, just to give some context, this was a massive rally after the United States of America bombed Yemen for the first time. And we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
We're going to get to that. But that's actually pretty serious.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
it a world war. We don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the Middle East is at.
Right.
They're like, we don't care, bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, good times.
Yeah.
All right.
Great start to the new year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, great start to the new year. So we're actually going to talk a little bit, obviously, about Israel. We're going to talk about the genocide case that South Africa brought against them to the International Court of Justice. And obviously, not everyone agrees that there is a genocide there. But before we get into that, we're going to have a debate, genocide or not. It's going to be really heated debate. It's interesting that Israel even claims that there isn't a genocide because Israelis say it so overtly. Like they say the quiet part out loud. They're actually doing South Africa a favor. They've been doing South Africa a favor in making its case by actually creating the genocidal intent, making the genocidal intent, which is required to make the case for genocide, making that so clear. But here is John Kirby of the National Security Council.
Sorry.
Here he is. He's going to try to convince you that there isn't a genocide. And, of course, what I did is I made a little mashup between John Kirby and this montage that Five Pillars Media had made of Israelis making some statements. You can decide for yourself.
this is the same guy who cried crocodile tears for Ukrainian kids, right?
Yeah, only for Ukrainian kids.
Only white children.
And no, he's upset about Israeli children and
Okay,
Ukrainian children,
yeah.
but when it comes to Palestinian children, it's a war that happens.
Also, he's
war.
like a crisis actor. You can hire him
Yeah.
to cry or not.
Also,
Depends who the highest bidder is.
he also uses filler.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He definitely has cheek filler.
Yeah, he has
I'm
cheek
convinced.
filler.
I live in Lebanon. I know what cheek filler looks
Yeah,
like.
exactly. Yeah. So she can vouch for it. That's why we brought her all the way from Lebanon to vouch for that. Yeah. Yeah. So let's take a look at John Kirby, and then on the other side, because we want to be fair and balanced, let's take a look at what Israelis actually say.
Thrown around in a pretty inappropriate way by lots of different folks.
Fake tanner
Israel
too, huh?
is not trying to wipe the Palestinian people off the map.
זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק, יצטווינו. אנו זוכרים ואנו נלחמים.
Seems like a sane person.
Yeah. That looks like a thug.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true.
Israel's not trying to wipe Gaza off the map.
They say it in English.
אין
John
חשמל,
Kirby.
אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
עזה לא תחזור להיות מה שהייתה וחמאס לא יהיה. חסל את הכל.
We will eliminate everything.
Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist. Invest his energy in one thing, erasing all of Gaza from the face of the earth. That's a Knesset member. The Gaza monsters will fly to the southern fence and try to enter Egyptian territory. They will die. Nuking Gaza is an option. Use doomsday weapons against Gaza.
Very healthy society here.
Israel's trying to defend itself against a genocidal terrorist threat. So when if we're going to start using that word, fine, let's use it appropriately.
All right, man.
All right.
How has
Yeah.
no one thrown a shoe at him yet?
I know.
I'm not
An
advocating.
entire
Let me in the
dresser,
press
an
pool,
entire
man.
wardrobe or more, yeah. So what do you guys think? Let's vote. Genocide or not genocide? Anyone in the room? Genocide? Okay, yeah. All right.
Two hands.
Well, what's
That's
crazy,
that's a double vote.
What's crazy is there's so many clips we would
Yeah,
take literally like
that's-
a week to watch them all. But I remember when Netanyahu said they love using telegenically dead kids. The more dead, the better.
This was in 2018,
This
right?
was, during the Great March of Return. And then Naftali Bennett said they're committing self-genocide. So at least he admitted it, right?
Naftali
They're
Bennett
just doing
in
it to
that
themselves.
Same clip you're talking about also added that in every house, and not just Palestinian, like Arab homes, Lebanon and Palestine, they have a kitchen, a bedroom, and a
missile
rocket
room.
launching room. I didn't get one with my apartment. I didn't get a rocket launching room. I'm kind of
How can you afford all that space? Like, don't you have a one bedroom?
Yeah, no, I have that's more than one.
Oh, okay.
But
So
I
you
don't
could
have
a rocket launching.
Yeah, but
You might as well invest
come
in
with
one.
the
Right,
house.
it
Like
can
I have to
come,
make it myself.
Yeah.
Right. It must have been
That's bullshit.
pre-war.
I can't
Pre-war
have
house, yeah.
pre-war.
Yeah, pre-October 7th.
Yeah.
History began October 7th.
Yeah. Well, we again want to be fair and balanced, and we let you hear from John Kirby, but then I think we just debunked his claims. But someone else thinks that there isn't a genocide right now, and that man is the...
He's the epitomization of like progressivism, so it's a little awkward, like he's really hardcore progressive, so it's like,
And we're talking about none other than, should have been Dr. Oz, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
Great crowd. I love it.
Fighting. It's a group of cowards. They hide in tunnels. They hide behind civilians. They attack, kill, and mutilate children, women, and they do that. Stop talking about proportion on that. They shot their best shot on October 7th, and they would have taken more lives if they couldn't do that, but they couldn't do it. And now let's also talk about that. Now we're talking about genocide. And now South Africa is bringing that kind of a trial. Maybe South Africa ought to sit this one out when they're talking about criticizing.
Okay.
he's a horrible public speaker. Is it just me?
So
We're hearing
whoa. So, spoiler alert, little teaser.
Oopsies.
Like, why should he says that as if like the government of South Africa right now just committed a genocide? Like,
He's a
why
white
should
he's
they
a white
sit it
farmer
out?
genocide guy. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The white farmers
The
of
white
freedom.
farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
Yeah.
South Africa knows what apartheid is.
I
So
don't know.
they
I don't
have
know.
yeah,
think,
it's true.
I think John Fetterman knows.
Yeah,
what
John
apartheid
Fetterman
is.
knows what it is because he probably likes it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who else should sit this one out? Because
Who?
he was saying that South Africa should sit
Yeah.
this one out, and it reminded me of how Germany
Oh yeah.
was like, hey, we're gonna intervene legally to help Israel in the genocide case.
Well, they are genocide experts, so
They
I'm
are.
torn because I feel like they're actually really experienced when it comes to that. So
Also, it is all their fault. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
I think Germany should have to carve out like a piece of land for a Jewish state,
yeah, me too.
like from Germany. Like they should have to.
Yeah.
I mean, they started.
Can we have
it,
Berlin
right?
though?
Like,
I've heard Berlin's really cool.
I've heard Berlin's really cool. It is supposed to be very cool. Unless a lot of Israelis, they moved to Berlin.
Oh, it is true, right,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. A lot
yeah.
of Israelis moved to Berlin.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, the audacity of Germany,
Seriously.
it's disgusting. This is all like the original sin you created. And what I loved so much is then Namibia was like, excuse me? You're gonna what? And they were like, the presidency in Namibia released a statement, and they were like, we don't think Germany should be allowed to speak on this, considering they've never apologized for the genocide they committed
Right.
in Namibia, which was like the OG German genocide.
Right. They don't get enough credit for that genocide.
No, they don't.
You know?
Germany,
Like,
Germany loves genocide. Like we should expect nothing less because they've historically and consistently. Well, West Germany. We should say West Germany if like we have our East Germans here at all,
Yeah.
and they're like upset. And
safe
offended.
space. This is a safe space for East
Yeah,
Germans.
safe space for East Germans. But no, they've like historically always been on the side of genocide. So I guess we should expect nothing
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, they only want to atone for the white genocide, right?
Yeah.
Right. And it has been, it's erasure of the Namibia genocide
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because the Jewish genocide has taken up the spotlight. So it's time to highlight the other one.
Yeah.
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 Fair and balanced,
Yeah.
again, as we
But
said.
honestly,
Yeah.
how disgusting is John Fetterman?
Yeah. Bringing it back
What's
to the
wrong
important
with
thing.
him?
No, that's true, yeah.
If I see one more goddamn comment from that monster about
know.
hostage posters,
I wish
I'm
I
gonna
had
lose my
volunteered for
mind.
Dr. Oz, seriously. Makes me wish I had.
He's a stroke survivor, isn't he?
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Is that-
saying. When he first, everybody liked him because they were like, oh, he's a stroke survivor.
Right.
And he's like the working class and he's like so
Yeah.
progressive. And I
But
was
he's
like,
like
yeah,
a
he
nut-
sounds
he-
cool. And then he was like, I love genocide. And I was like, never
But
mind.
he's also like a nepo baby. He's like a rich kid. Like he was like basically just became mayor or something randomly, like with no
And he tries
experience.
to
He's, like,
overcompensate by wearing
by
sloppy,
wearing
sloppy
just
clothes.
basketball shorts.
Yeah.
See, I thought because of he's like, so he's basically like cosplaying.
Yeah.
As a
yeah,
working
yeah, yeah,
class.
totally.
Okay.
I guess, yeah. But you know, it reminds me of, did you guys see that movie, Everyone Says I Love You, by problematic Woody Allen?
Oh, God.
So there's this subplot in it where like there's a Democratic, like Upper East Side Democrat family, and they have a son who's a Republican, and they're really ashamed. And then at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, they find out he had a brain tumor, and that explains why he's a Republican.
Does it involve Woody Allen fucking like a 15-year-old
No,
girl?
I mean maybe in the background, but
It's a
I'm
biography?
just saying when you mentioned the stroke
It's an
thing.
autobiography of Woody Allen? Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
Sorry.
basically all wet dream for him. Always.
But no, in all seriousness though, and in real like legit seriousness, like Israel is committing a horrific genocide against, well, it's an ongoing one, but they've really scaled up the genocide against Palestinians. And I think there's a lot of like background behind that, that Abby knows something about.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, I mean, look, like it is a very historic case. This is actually an amazing thing to finally, after all of these decades, 75 years of oppression, ethnic cleansing, occupation, bombing with impunity, finally Israel's crimes are being heard in international court, and that is amazing. That's amazing.
Regardless of the outcome.
And this is regardless of the outcome, and I think the case is so clear-cut. There's no way to question the evidence put forward, and so really it's just going to be the legitimacy of the court at this point.
That's why Israel's only defense is to be like a horrific narcissistic, like collective narcissism where they're just like gaslighting everyone. They're like, we are killing all Palestinians because we hate them, but also we're protecting civilians. And you're just like, what?
Well, yeah, they're like trying to use their entire case, right, at the ICJ was saying how much the Palestinians wanted to kill them, which that's not a legal defense. You can't use genocide as a self-defense, which is kind of what they're implying and trying to suggest, even if that were the truth, which it's not.
Even if all the lies Israel has told in the last almost 4 months now, even if every single lie was true, and when I say lie, I mean like all caps, like 40 beheaded babies, all of the disgusting racist claims they've made about like the disgusting Browns came just to rape all our white women, which is like a historically racist smear against anyone brown and black to just call them all rapists of white women. And we should all like emphasize that that's a racist claim to make if you don't have any evidence. On top of that, like everything, all the lies, the fact that they blame Hamas for killing everyone when it's like their own media says that they bombed their own people. Even if every horrific claim they've made about what they say Hamas did on October 7th, even if all of it were true, nothing justifies genocide. Nothing justifies killing babies. Like 10,000 babies.
Right.
Nothing justifies that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I asked someone this today. I was like, how many babies is acceptable for you? Because she kept saying, but October 7th, but Hamas, but they killed these people, but they killed those people. And it's like, what is the threshold for you? Is there ever enough Palestinian
dead
babies?
kids?
Like, yeah, it's unbelievable that people think that they're going to convince anyone that what Israel's doing is okay because of something that happened on October 7th. And I just think that, you know, it's just very easy to say, for me at least, like, there's literally nothing you could tell me about October 7th. Nothing that I could find out about October 7th that would justify what Israel's doing.
Right, especially that article that came out in 972 Mag about Israel's assassination factory, how like Israeli intelligence officers admitted on record that we know every person in every building. We know if there's a 3-year-old girl, and we calculate that. And we methodically go through and take out these targets. And so everything is justified and rationalized. They know every kid who's being blown to bits.
You know, so like having grown up in this country as the child of Middle Eastern immigrants, like in the United States of America. I'm so sorry to Americans who aren't U.S. That I just said that. I know someone's rolling their eyes at me right now. In the U.S., having grown up here as a child of immigrants who are Middle Eastern and having like grown up during 9/11 and having experienced the racism from that, like I understand this country as a racist country, obviously, but I still am shocked by just how virulently bloodthirsty the people who run this country are when it comes to Palestinians, when it comes to Arabs. They don't care. Like we're all watching people carrying the limbs of their children that they've had to dig from under the rubble. And you see people have lost their homes and their families. They're living without shelter, without bathrooms. Women are getting C-sections without anesthesia.
And their amputations.
Babies, oh my God. I'm sorry, there's been so many phases of this genocide. There was the phase where they were just like starving premature babies. Israel was enthusiastically letting 3 premature babies die. And the people who run this country were like, yeah, that seems fair. They're not like, that's essentially the message that I've received. I'm sure all of you have received, is that people in the global south are not human. And Gaza is the embodiment of that at this moment. It is like a version of what the West wants for the global south, is like annihilation. Like, if you fight back, we will kill all of you because you are not human. That's what I see right now.
And it's like this ridiculous false dichotomy, or not false dichotomy, but this ridiculous premise of like, what else is Israel supposed to do? Don't they have the right to defend themselves? It's like, how on earth can you pretend what they're doing now is self-defense? How is targeting journalists self-defense? How is targeting babies, like you just mentioned, Abby, self-defense? Or people having amputations without anesthesia? None of this is self-defense. It's, like you said, bloodlust, and it's because there is such a dehumanization of Palestinians in particular, Arabs in general, but especially Palestinians. And it's, it's just, the response from the United States is like, don't worry guys, we're having tough talks. We're having hard conversations. That's really how they're responding. That's what John Kirby says, that's what Jake Sullivan says, and then if you ask if they're committing genocide, they say that they don't want to play judge and juror.
I mean, yeah, Gaza's always been like a testing ground, and it's so disturbing to just see it as far as they'll take it, just being greenlit, and it's like everyone's just watching this unfold, and the U.S. is facilitating it all. And I think that we should talk about like what happened before October 7th, because
nothing.
Well,
that's when history started.
In the context of, Abby has a fantastic documentary that if you have not seen it, it's available online for free. Gaza Fights for Freedom. And you collaborated on that with a bunch of really great people from Gaza.
Yeah, because I was banned from getting in because, they always say like, oh, Jews can't enter Gaza. It's like, well, you're not letting them. Like, you selectively decide who can be a yes man journalist to go in and tow your narrative, as we're seeing with CNN and all the censorship bureau that you have to vet everything through the IDF before you can reveal anything. And so when I was there in 2016, I had all the proper credentials and paperwork, and they were just like, no, you're a propagandist, you're banned for life from getting in. And so we worked with photojournalists and incredible heroic journalists who risked their lives running away from bullets at the Great March of Return during those months from 2018 to 2019, where over 200 Palestinians were assassinated by Israeli snipers. At that time, I thought that was the most egregious thing Israel has ever done. And so we wanted to compile that story because the Western media was so egregiously, so one-sided, so disgusting, basically saying people were dying of head wounds without saying they were being targeted and shot by snipers, children, disabled people, medics, journalists, of course, Razan al-Najjar. And it was all wrapped around international law. And you think if people just saw this, if they just saw what Israel is really about, it's like target practice for them. I mean, they released video. There's a scene in the movie where Israeli soldiers actually released in an internal Facebook group them picking off kids
and celebrating,
and laughing about it and celebrating. And people always ask, oh my God, how did you get that footage? It's like, they released that themselves because they celebrate that internally, and it got leaked. But all the people involved in the film are, they've all been rendered homeless. Their homes have been completely destroyed. They have no future at all. Maz Maza, the incredible heroic videographer who filmed most of the material, he lost 2 brothers, not lost, they were murdered. Let's call it what it is. And they're living in tents, they're living under rubble, and every day is a gift because they think they could just die at any moment. And how do you even check in at this point? And there's Ahmed Amu-Artema, who was the incredible lead organizer of the Great March. His house was targeted because Israel's using this war to just execute all of their political dissidents, all the political dissidents who they've been basically taking names of. And so they bombed Ahmed's home, and his 10-year-old son was murdered alongside 5 of his family members, and he's sitting in a hospital with second-degree burns. So it's so real Because everyone has a story. It's not just the people that I know, it's every single person in Gaza has lost almost everything because there's no rebuilding this. You can't rebuild that. Like, we've just let this happen. Like, not we, but I mean, the West has facilitated this and let this happen. It's disgusting.
Empowered it.
Facilitated it.
Yeah, facilitated it, yeah. Coordinated it.
But I know I've been talking forever, but I wanted to really quickly, like back in 2014 during Operation Protective Edge, another Orwellian, like dystopian name for just slaughtering Palestinians. I'll never forget, I was working at Russia Today, and I did this rant.
Get out.
Sorry, you have to leave.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a Russian.
Sorry, wow, out.
Do you condemn Putin? So I remember I did this video, it became viral in the Middle East because it was an indictment on Western journalism for not doing their jobs and not documenting Israeli war crimes at the time, so it became viral in Palestine. And right after that happened, Israeli forces bombed the Al-Sharok journalist tower and an RT cameraman's leg was blown off. And so our boss at RT was like, issued a stern letter to authorities being like, did you know that you did this? And like, what are you gonna do? And they were just like, RT has taken a side in the coverage. Of course we knew there were journalists in the building.
So disgusting.
And so I think that was like my first insight, like, oh, this is like a special kind of impunity and a special kind of brazenness that not even the United States would do because it cares too much about its image, but its appendage, Israel can and will do anything that it wants as long as the U.S. is
and
backing
there's
it.
nothing that's like too much for the U.S. to tolerate and enable.
Israel will murder babies on film and like laugh maniacally about it, like their soldiers will. Their soldiers will release footage on TikTok showing you how much they enjoy killing Palestinian babies. And then the Israelis will say we're the victims. It's completely batshit. Like, I don't even know what you do with that.
Well, Abby, you actually had a special, oh, by the way, is there any way we could get some white wine up here? Sorry, I can't do red wine, it'll stain. And
I'm gonna need some
give me a headache.
Prosecco.
Yeah, I don't care what
Can I
kind.
speak to the manager?
Yeah. No, it'll just give me a headache, so.
Karen, pipe down.
But,
But no, really, white wine would be fantastic if we have it.
Abby, you.
But no, seriously, we need wine.
Yeah, we
Seriously,
need,
you
we need wine.
I'll take
This isn't a joke.
I'll take vodka too.
You were in Israel and you documented some of this genocidal rhetoric. We have a video of that. Can we take a look at that?
Yeah, this is a fun one. Go, yeah.
To it. There's only one way. Like, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it. Like, or try to stop them a different way. It never worked.
You mean all Arabs or Gaza or?
I believe that they, like, I hope to believe they're not, but I do think
Basically
they
saying
are,
all Arabs. Carpet bomb all Arabs.
I don't trust them. You can't trust them, and that's the only way I believe that. The only way is just to stop it completely.
I think that we're miserable. The Arabs make a פיגועים and we need to kill Arabs.
Oh, so funny.
Okay.
We'll talk about this later.
All right, cool. Well,
there is also Jewish civilians that hate Arabs. Yeah, I'm not saying, but we have also people that like the Arabs and everything, like Smolanim.
I think another thing that the Jews should have rights to hate them. I think we have the right to hate them. I don't see a reason why not. I wouldn't trust any of them.
I like how the other guy was just like, oh yeah, like no, and he was like, no.
Also,
We have the
Abby,
right to hate all of them, and we
you
should
were-
carpet bomb them all.
You weren't like doing gotchas. You were just
Right,
walking
yeah.
in the street. Like you, and those. There was, by the way, you should go watch the whole video. It's like
That's not the
it's
only-
like dozens of people.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. Everyone's always like, you wanted to make Israelis look bad. I was like, I genuinely didn't know what I was getting into at all. I had no idea that I was like in Nazi Germany until you just start talking to me. It was like the most basic question, like, how do you feel about the situation? Kill them all, carpet bomb them all. You're like, oh my God, what is happening here? I mean, pre-October 7th, I mean, this was just the every day in Israeli society. And you go back to the Great March of Return when they picked off people one by one for doing nothing but peacefully protesting, and 95% of Israelis supported the shoot to kill if you just venture too close to that artificial border fence in Gaza.
You know how many Israelis want a ceasefire right now, according to a poll? Like, I think from the last couple months, so I don't know.
0.01?
2%?
It's like 3%. Yeah, wow, you guys underestimated. But tell me, like, who are you supposed to make peace with? Peace with? When only 3% of people are, and it's probably like 3% that they accidentally asked an Arab, because like 20% of the population is Palestinians. They forgot to ethnically cleanse.
Yeah, the Arabs there.
They were like, oops, we left these villages here.
But the only reason that became so viral is because you never see Israelis speaking for themselves. I mean, they were speaking knowing that they were on camera. That's what's so bizarre.
Right,
about
this
it.
wasn't like a hidden camera.
No, this was like, okay, what are you guys saying off camera? This is like what you're proudly
is
saying
their,
on
like, politically
camera.
correct version.
And it's like all these Western journalists that just go and they're based in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and they just reprint press releases from the military. It's like, do they not talk to people or do they all just like laugh about this?
No, they cover it up because like Isabel Kirshner of the New York Times, her kid is in the IDF.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Israeli army. I can't even call it the IDF.
IOF.
The IOF. No, but seriously, her son is like an Israeli soldier and she is like their correspondent. That is such a conflict of interest. Could you imagine if the Beirut bureau chief for the New York Times had like a family member in Hezbollah? The only way that would be allowed is if they were like a self-hating Shia.
Right.
And anyone who that's the only way that would even be allowed. And even then, it's always a white person anyways. And it's not just her, it's like Mondo Weiss is constantly covering that. So a lot of them have an interest in covering it up, and they do.
Another thing that is so infuriating is the insistence that Palestinians use, like it's so unfortunate, we don't want to kill them, but unfortunately they use human shields. Meanwhile, there's like a recent video of Israelis using a human shield. No one ever talks about that. And human rights organizations have documented Israel using human shields. They haven't documented Hamas using human shields.
There's a name for it. Israel has a name for it. It's called the good neighbor policy.
Oh, that's great.
They use a Palestinian to like basically, they'll make them walk ahead of them or make them go into someone else's home in case it's booby trapped.
Yeah.
Or so that if there's other Palestinians like with guns in the home, they won't fire.
Right.
Because there's a Palestinian they'll force to walk in front of them. Because they're the most brave army in the world.
And the other thing is this insistence
and
that
the
most moral army in the world, right? And the insistence that it's so unfortunate Palestinians, they don't value life, they just value death. Israelis value life, not death. Meanwhile, it's unbelievable that they don't even do anything to forget. We know that they hate Palestinians, but they don't do anything to even free the hostages. I mean, not only do they not free them, they kill their own hostages.
Hannibal Directive.
And the Hannibal Directive, which says that you can't let hostages, that you have to kill the hostages, right? So that
before they're taken
they become
hostage.
Prisoners of war.
So that they can't use them as leverage.
Yeah.
Like Gilad Shalit.
And they've already killed like several hostages from, so many during the Nova Festival.
They've only been, as far as I
It looked like the highway of
understand, they've
death.
only been killed by Israel.
There's one more comment about just the non-existence of the left in Israeli society. Because for my entire life, I was just, ever since I became awakened to the situation, the reality of it, it's always been like the left, like we need to embolden the left and the left's going to change Israeli society from within. Not the case at all. I mean, a lot of leftists flee because how the fuck can you live in a fascist society like that? It's actually dangerous, more so now than ever. But when I was there were mass rallies not only chanting "kill the Arabs," but also like "death to the leftists" and "death to the videographers."
Slur, right?
There's a slur in Israeli. I mean, yeah, leftist is a slur. I met people who called themselves leftists, and they said, "I want the occupation to be more humane."
That's as far left as it goes.
And it's like, what? And then. And then also there's a saying in Israeli society that this leftist kid told me. He was like, yeah, there's a saying that leftists are AIDS and Arabs are the common cold. You have to get rid of the left before you get the final solution. I was like, oh, you guys are
Final solution? Oh, wow. Yeah. Where'd they get that word from?
Yeah.
Wow.
So...
Whoa.
Well, we want to ask you, Rania, shifting gears a little bit, to talk about what's happening in the region. So we were just talking about Israel-Palestine, but what is happening in the rest of the Middle East?
So like I wrote things around my notes, and one of them says not proxies. Axis of resistance is class struggle. Am I allowed to say that?
Well, what is the axis of resistance?
I have that written twice.
Break that down.
And also, it's not the Middle East of 2003.
Okay, so what's the axis of resistance? Let's start there.
The axis of resistance, it's a collection of, you can't really call them armies because some of them are, as they call them, non-state actors, but it's a collection of fighting forces across the region who are committed to protecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of their countries against imperialism. And the sort of leadership of the axis of resistance, because of its support for it, is Iran, at least, culturally and monetarily. And when it comes to weapons.
Did they sponsor your trip here?
Well, I mean, I'm neither yes nor no because I don't want to offend anyone on any side.
Iranian stooge.
But, I mean, some people would say, I've been called Irania before.
Oh, that's clever.
Wow. It's a funny one, right?
I may not agree with them, but they're smart and funny.
Well, that's like one of the
whoever said
only
that.
smart and funny ones. Sometimes it's really stupid.
really-
Like
that's
my
really
favorite,
stupid.
my
That's really
favorite is, why don't you go live in Iran? And I'm like, okay.
You don't speak Farsi.
Go back
No,
to
I mean,
your
Take a
I'll
Farsi
visit.
craft
I'm down
course.
with visiting Iran, but like, okay. Anyway, but no, so Iran is sort of like the leader of it. It's a country, right? It has an army. It's like has a functioning government, and then you have a bunch of forces. Obviously, I think the most militarily significant one in terms of its power to fight is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Of course, there's Palestinian factions across Gaza and the West Bank. Hamas is the one we hear the most about, but there are actually a lot of other groups, and they're all working together right now, including a leftist one too, but we don't hear about those ones either. But anyways, so you have Palestinians, you have Hezbollah, which is Lebanese, you have in Iraq, you have various forces inside what's called the Hashd al-Shabi, or the Popular Mobilization Forces, which were formed after ISIS took large swaths of Iraq back in 2014, and they came together to fight ISIS, and the US identifies a few of them as terrorist organizations, but really all this means is that they're organizations that don't like America and fight America sometimes. And then you've got, more recently, becoming even stronger, the Yemenis.
Who are fulfilling their obligation, right? As well as every country
I want to
should.
say a few things about the other ones, but I do want to just first say some things about the Yemenis, because I think the Yemenis have taken the world by storm. It's fascinating. I think the Yemenis are doing material damage. They're causing economic consequences for genocide. This is humanitarian intervention. What they're doing, they're blockading ships. And not any ships. They're not blockading all ships. Initially, they were only obstructing the movement of ships that had a destination for this fake country called Israel. It calls itself Israel. And so this was, and they said repeatedly, this group called Ansar Allah, which runs Yemen right now, that fought a several years long war, some might even call it a genocide, that the US and the UK and the Saudis were inflicting on them, and they won. They were saying repeatedly, their leadership over and over, you can go hear their interviews, they said, as long as this genocide of Gaza continues, as long as humanitarian aid is not allowed in, we will obstruct any ship coming from anywhere that is destined for Israel. And they did that. And they did that quite non-violently, and I would say in the sense of they didn't kill anyone. But the US got really mad and bombed them for it as a result recently. And it's just crazy how much the US is willing to escalate. And I just want to note, you shouldn't mess with Yemenis. You saw that video we showed you in the beginning, but there's one video I've watched probably 100 times. I think it was like a month into the genocide.
It's really satisfying.
One of my personal trainers sent it to me.
One of her many.
One of my
personal
many.
trainers.
No, I have two who I love dearly. But one of them actually sent it to me because he's like super political, and he was like, "This video is so cool." And it's like this just Yemeni guy on the street video, and it's a pretty, I think, common attitude of Yemenis, and I want that clip to be shown if possible.
America or Israel, we would say to them, whatever they do, whatever they among with them, we don't fucking give a shit to them. And we don't care, and they will never scare us, they will never stop us. We are coming from Yemen, from Sana'a to Palestine very soon, inshallah. Because we are with our leader, Sayyid Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi, and we know that we are in the right side. So no one can stop us. We know our way. We know that we are in the right side. So we're going to come to the White House, and we will change it from the White House to the black house and dirty house. Just wait for us. And that's it.
Preach. Preach.
You should nominate him for president.
Yeah. You can
that
come,
guy.
you can be your White House, sir. But I mean, that is a rare, I mean, I don't think people understand, like, Yemenis have already sacrificed so much, and they're willing to sacrifice more. Like, when people have nothing to lose, and you have everything to lose, like, it's on their side, not yours. And I think that that's a microcosm of the struggle across the region right now. Palestinians are fighting, like, yes, there's a genocide happening, and it's horrific, and we should all be disgusted and grieving over it. But we cannot forget the fact that Palestinians are resisting. They are resisting courageously every single day in many different ways. They are resisting. They're so brave. They're so creative. I mean, it's across Palestine and even outside of Palestine. People are resisting in so many different ways, and we can't erase that, and we need to let that inspire us. Inspire us right now, because people are resisting a genocide. If there were fighters and writers and protesters inside any death camp during the Holocaust, inside the Warsaw Ghetto, we would be remembering them today as the bravest, most courageous, and there were, as the bravest, most courageous people in the world. And there is this double standard, right? Where Israelis and their supporters get to go on the internet and they get to celebrate doing genocide. They get to take photos and videos and put them online and laugh and joke and plan more, and nothing happens. There's no consequence. But then an Arab writes that they're prideful of their resistance online, it gets taken down, they lose their job. Like, they even try to take away the right of people to celebrate their resistance. And our resistance here is all the protests that are happening, and they're so important. But
which were painted as pro-Hamas celebrations at the beginning.
Pro-terrorist protests.
Pro-terrorist protests. But I just want to say a couple more things, and I'll stop rambling. But I have spent the majority of the time post-October 7th in Lebanon. And I think I'm happy I got to be there, and I'm going back in a week, and I'm happy to go back. And it has definitely been a little scary to be there, you know, in the sense of every single day you live next to this psychotic neighbor who's like threatening to annihilate you. So literally, like every day the Israelis are like, we're going to take Lebanon back to the Stone Age. We're going to turn Beirut into Gaza. The Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says he wants to copy-paste Gaza onto Beirut, which just reminds me of, like, I know English isn't his first language, which is fine. It's kind of funny. I'm going to copy-paste. I will copy-paste this, but no, it's like I'm going to copy-paste genocide. It's disgusting. So that's a little bit frightening to hear. You see, it's psychological terror. They're trying to psychologically terrorize their neighbors who aren't in Gaza. But it's not working. People are not scared of them anymore. This is not the Middle East of 2003. This is the Middle East of 2024. There are forces of resistance across the region who refuse to be bullied, who refuse to be terrorized, and who refuse to submit to this disgusting, thuggish bullying that we're seeing. And I think it's incredible. I think it's an incredible moment. And I think it's going to be, you know, we're going to look back at this years from now and see it as a huge turning point in history, because what's happening in Gaza, I mentioned my notes said Gaza's class struggle. What's happening in Gaza is you have people in the global south fighting colonizers. They're fighting imperialism. America backs Israel. Israel is an arm of American imperialism, and people are fighting it. They are fighting imperialism. And it's anti-imperialism that we're witnessing right now on a huge scale. The Israelis say, oh, we're going to defeat Hamas. We're going to defeat Hezbollah every single day. Hamas fires at Israel. You have achieved nothing militarily. And just to show you the fearlessness of the Lebanese, because they know that today they have an army, they have Hezbollah, they're not scared, at least not, like, especially not in the south. It sucks and it is scary, but they're not scared because, you know, in the past, whenever Israel wanted to bomb Lebanon, the first thing they would do is bomb the airport. It's been almost 4 months, and you know what they haven't done? They haven't bombed the airport. That's huge. Like, that's huge. Every time anybody fired at Israel, they would bomb the airport. And now the airport's been functioning for 4 months, and there's only one reason for that. Like it or hate it, it's because Hezbollah has strategic deterrent capacity against Israel. Israel knows if we bomb the airport in Beirut, which they still might, but they know if we bomb the airport in Beirut, they're going to bomb Ben Gurion. And they're not going to bomb Ben Gurion with homemade rockets that aren't precision guided. They're going to use precision guided missiles that will do real damage and will shut down our airport. So they think 100 times before they bomb what they want to bomb in Lebanon. And that's the difference between today and before. And I want to show this one journalist in particular. He is a correspondent for an outlet called Al Mayadeen, which the Israelis just banned in Israel because they call it an arm of terrorism.
Where is it based?
It's based in Lebanon. It's a Lebanese outlet. It's called Al Mayadeen. Doesn't pretend to be objective. It has a very pro-resistance view. And there's this correspondent called Ali Mortada, and he's based on the border in the south of Lebanon where all of the bombings are happening. And every single day, this guy makes a video. And he makes a video for his enemies. He says, "Hello, my enemy. May you have a very bad day." And then he proceeds to say whatever he wants to say that day. And so he taunts them. It's hilarious. So I want to play a clip of Ali Mortada taunting his Israeli neighbors.
Hello, my enemies. May you have a very, 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 very bad day. Guys, if you have anything to do, you can do it now. We are on a break. We are watching the big guy and listening what he's going to do to you. So after he finished, run away. But now you can do it. If you have anything, you can do it. Take care, ya bibi.
I encourage you to follow him on Instagram and Twitter because it just lifts my spirits to see that. But also, I just want to mention one more thing. The Israelis and what they've done in Gaza has destroyed any chance at normalization anytime soon, even with the collaborationist Arab governments that the U.S. owns. And the street is with Palestine everywhere. You know, even you see flags with this man called Abu Ubaidah on it. He's the spokesperson for the Qassam brigades, which I'm sure a lot of people in this room are aware of and familiar with. He gives these really fiery speeches. He's like the Nasrallah of Qassam. And he's well known. His picture is all over the place, and people are starting to revere this guy.
In fact, I think he was invited to give a keynote at the Emmys, right? Just like Zelensky last year. I think I saw the Qassam brigade.
Like Zelensky last year.
Yeah, it was cool to see, actually.
But he was
really
too busy.
Cool. Yeah.
But anyways, I just wanted to end with that. So I'll end my end of rant.
Well, no, Rania, it's so incredible that you broke that down. It's so important because I think, I mean, at least for me, watching this situation unfold, it seems so counterintuitive to maintaining global hegemony when you're losing the plot, right? You're like, it's so counterintuitive to U.S. empire and capitalism with the attack, like all of the bombing campaigns, all of the attacks. And it's like, what is really behind this? Like, how could the U.S. be slipping so much to allow this new kind of world order to emerge? But I think when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. There is no strategy behind it other than all we have is military might. I mean, the United States is basically just an empty suit run by like missile companies. And so all they see is like, let's bomb the problem. And I think that's truly it. Like, if you look back and you're like, oh, how come we didn't learn the lessons of the Iraq War or Vietnam? Like, there are no lessons to be gleaned by an empire that is belligerent and out of control, and they just throw out the advisors who counter what they say. So that's what we're seeing today. It's like, my question is for the media. Like, how could you call yourself a journalist and not be speaking out with every fiber of your being for 105 of your colleagues to be assassinated, many along their entire families? But for the actual political establishment, it kind of makes sense now that I am looking at it. It's like they're just going to dig their own grave like they always have, because there is no other solution.
Yeah, you know, I want to add one thing to what you're saying specifically, because it is like, why are you going this far? They are hurting themselves in the long run, but I don't think they have a choice, because I think October 7th represented something really scary to the Americans and Europeans. And it's like, okay, you had Gaza's this concentration camp that's now been turned into a death camp, right? It's been a concentration camp for like 15 years practically. And the prisoners, but it's not even right to call them prisoners, the concentration camp dwellers broke out of their cage, and they inflicted a military blow onto what was supposed to be the representative of Western imperialism in the Middle East. And they humiliated them. And that cannot be allowed. That's really scary. That's like, what if other people across the global South get ideas? We can't have people breaking out of their cages. We have to deter that. How do you deter that? You crush them. You crush them into the ground. And so I think this is punishment and also supposed to be like a lesson for all those other countries out there. All these African countries, all these Latin American countries, all these Asian countries. Don't you dare think about it, or this is what's gonna happen to you.
Yeah. Don't you dare stand on your own 2 feet. Well, I think that the whole anti-Semitism narrative is really falling flat, especially with this latest genocidal onslaught, because of how many anti-Zionist Jews are out in the streets leading so many direct actions. It's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. I was just arrested alongside 19 Jewish allies in Portland. It was really powerful, and it was done in solidarity with the international court proceedings with South Africa. But Katie, as our resident anti-Zionist Jew, I want to turn this to you because, this is all that they've relied on forever. You're anti-Semitic if you dare to criticize.
Or self-loathing Jew. Yeah.
Israel. And as Mohammed al-Kurd would say, it's like, why is it our fault that Israel's decided to don like the Star of David on all of its insignia and then act completely insanely fascist and genocidal? Like, why is that our fault? Why do we have to denounce what they're like, that they represent Judaism? But that's always been the trope. It's always been, we're on the defense, right? We have, because we're anti-racists, because we're anti-bigots, and so we always felt like, no, like that's so offensive. It's so offensive, and now I have to explain myself why I'm not an anti-Semite if I care about human rights and if I'm speaking out about this thing. But the narrative does not stick anymore because you have millions of Jewish people leading these actions. But if you look at an organization like the Anti-Defamation League, they'll just say, you're not a Jew. You're not a Jew, Katie. Yeah. How does that make you feel?
They've stripped Katie of her Judaism.
Yeah. Well, luckily I don't define myself according to the ADL. But, they have classified Jewish Voice for Peace as a hate group, the ADL. Yeah. So when they're giving statistics, and obviously Students for Justice in Palestine, but JVP, and we know they're actually like spying on them because there was this leaked audio of Jonathan Greenblatt talking about how we have analysts in their groups. He's talking about Students for Just Palestine and JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace. But everyone should know that when they're giving their numbers about anti-Semitic attacks or hate crimes, that can include like a protest in Grand Central Station organized by Jewish Voice for Peace.
Yeah, graffiti saying Free Palestine.
Yeah, and it's so infuriating because there is anti-Semitism and entities like the ADL are actually creating more anti-Semitism and making people take real anti-Semitism less seriously because they're so used to people calling things that aren't anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. And of course, the irony is that the ADL and AIPAC and the Israeli government always claim that Israel is what keeps Jews safe, but Israel is making Jews in danger. Like, what could make me as a Jew more nervous about my own safety? I mean, I oppose what Israel's doing in Palestine for moral reasons, but also just in terms of being a Jew, like, I don't want them to be the face of Jewry. Like, they are genocidal and they're doing things that are awful and they're being broadcast. Like, why would that make me feel any safer? And I think it is getting harder to conflate Zionism and anti-Semitism, in part because there are a lot of Jewish anti-Zionists out there. But I also think it's interesting because, the idea that being anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic, that in itself is an anti-Semitic trope. Because that's like the loyalty oath. That's the idea that all Jews are this monolith who support Israel. So I feel like we should be calling the ADL and AIPAC and Israel anti-Semitic. Because they're the ones who are...
Can I tell a little story that I think reinforces what you're saying? First of all, I do want to say the ADL did a survey in 2014 of anti-Semitism. Guess where? They measured anti-Semitism in the West Bank and Gaza with questions like, do you think Jews have too much control?
It's like asking black people during Jim Crow, in
Gaza, I mean, I'm pretty sure most people are like, in this apartheid state that privileges them and their bodies.
As we live under a fascist military dictatorship.
And then they'll go back and say, but they're saying Jews, not Israelis, as if Israel doesn't conflate the two things in the first place. And that's what they mean when they say Jews, they mean Israelis.
So in 1982, when the Israelis invaded Lebanon, they invaded the area where my grandmother's house was. And my uncle was a part of an organization, a political party that the Israelis consider terrorists because anybody who fights Israel is considered terrorists, and they were part of the groups fighting Israel at the time. And so they went to his house specifically to find the terrorist. Of course, he wasn't there because he's not stupid. But my grandmother went back to check on the house. I grew up hearing this story from her. She went back to check on the house, and there were Israeli soldiers there who someone had taken a shit. They like to take shits in the houses of Arabs, and sometimes they smear them on the walls. That's like a common thing. In this case, they hadn't smeared it. They just took a shit in her house.
That was very considerate of them.
She was very, very angry, and she like yelled at them, and she claims she made them clean it up, and I'm just gonna believe that. But anyways, they also, of course, everywhere they do what they do, they draw a Star of David. So, like, that's...
They draw in feces?
They did not in this case, but I would imagine they've probably done that sometime. So this is what people in neighboring countries and neighboring colonized territories by the Israelis experience, is they experience this symbol of Judaism as a hate symbol. And, you know, when I was like a kid, one of the first times I remember being in Lebanon, I was like maybe 7 years old. I think I told you the story. I was just like drawing shapes with my cousin. And she was like, "Can you draw a star?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can draw a star." I thought I had the secret to drawing a star because I could just draw 2 triangles and like skip the actual drawing a star part. So I drew 2 triangles together, not thinking anything of it. And she goes, "Oh!" And I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" Because it's like a Star of David. I didn't realize it. And then she goes and gets her mom, and her mom comes and she's like, "Oh!" And I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do?" I like didn't understand what I did. And then she explained to me, "This is on the flag of the people who bomb us." And that, I mean, that alone says so much. It's like, how do you expect people around you to view you're the religion you're claiming to represent in a positive way when you put it as your graffiti, you put it on your flag, you put it on your weapons, and you bomb them?
And then you have the forced isolation where it's like you go into the West Bank and there's massive red signs like, "Do not enter this area, you will be killed," because it's all projection about like you are in danger. You know, it's
if you're like outside, if you're like a white
yeah,
person or a Jewish person.
yeah, basically, yeah, like, yeah. And it's just so offensive, and it's such a juvenile narrative that all of this is driven by anti-Semitism.
Wow, Abby, watch it. Anti-Semitism.
Do you condemn
over
Hamas?
Here, yeah.
Do you condemn Hamas?
You know what I'm dealing with?
No, I just want to say really quickly, I remember in Oakland, there was like a children's exhibit of, you know, kids in Gaza. Obviously, they've had so much trauma generationally. Like every couple of years, they're just bombed and, you know, limbless and all of these horrific things. And there was a children's exhibit of just children's drawings. And there was a couple of them that had Stars of David on like soldiers' uniforms and planes that were bombing them. And the exhibit was too controversial. It was taken down and it was deemed anti-Semitic from 10-year-olds. They were depicting their reality. That's how insulting this is. It's just, it really does feel like we are all treated like children. I mean, and all of this rhetoric is designed to placate us because Israel relies on us for bombs and to subsidize their health care. And so
not
it's just...
ours, not our health care.
Yeah, no, we're healthcare less. We get the shit end of the stick. But no, Israelis are living large. I mean, they have our money, we feed them bombs, and then they use that insultingly stupid rhetoric on us where it's all human shields, Hamas is doing this to themselves. Like, I mean, we can see, they're just basically saying, don't believe your lying eyes. And I think it's not working anymore. I think Israel's on its last gasp.
Well, there's some people it's working on because I see these delusional white people who think they're Middle Eastern. Like, what is Katie? Explain this to me. Explain the whites who think that they're Middle Eastern.
Wait, Katie's not indigenous to Israel?
I'm indigenous to the Upper West Side. That's what I'm.
Okay.
That is my Jerusalem. Yeah. Well, I think are you trying to nudge us into the direction of showing someone we really love and respect, Deborah Messing. Let's take a look at her with, sorry, trigger warning, everyone. You can leave if you want to leave. We'll
Everybody
give you a couple seconds. Yeah.
Show
Will and Grace. And here she is talking to Noah Tishby, who is an Israeli actress who's doing a lot of great,
you guys, it's really touching.
PR work.
It's really touching.
Everyone,
okay, she's coming home.
Grab your handkerchiefs and your tissues. All right, let's take a look.
Beautiful moment.
Feel safer here? Why? Because you're home. It really is. It really is.
She's fucking crying.
I don't want to go. I don't want to leave.
I want to go ethnically cleanse a Palestinian home.
Another close friend and people from the people that are here in Israel this time is Deborah. Thank you for being here as well. Oh, it's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift to me.
Hope she brought her sunscreen because she's actually Polish and Russian.
People I've ever met in my entire life.
Israel does have one of the highest skin cancer rates in the world.
The
it's true.
optimism,
It's so weird
the resilience,
for indigenous people
the courage.
to not get along with their indigenous
I mean,
environment.
Literally, I've never seen anything like it in my life.
What? Never seen anything
And
like
the
what?
love. The love. The love.
The love.
Fascism?
Yeah.
I feel at home. I'm with my
Look,
Nazi.
she's meeting with the
colleagues.
president who said that all targets are legitimate. That's so loving.
I like how she's wearing kind of like a keffiyeh-y, like
Yeah, she's co-opting the keffiyeh.
Noah.
For the state of Israel.
Yeah, that's so touching.
Our right to exist. Our rights to exist. Sounds basic, right? It's
very
simple. It's very simple.
I mean, I guess when
Very simple. Our right to exist.
Hi. Hi.
Our
Noah
right to
Tishby-
exist
sorry.
by no.
I mean, our right to exist on principle of continuous ethnic cleansing of the indigenous population. So,
right. The idea that that's existence is
that's
so dangerous.
You don't have a divine right to do that. And also, Noah Tishby claimed, I mean, she's like the liaison of the Israeli government, which is hilarious. She has this book being like, "A Idiot's Guide to Israel,"
Which
is
is
just like the
is
face of
relevant
liberal
to her.
Zionism.
Yeah, she would know.
But she's like, I don't work for Netanyahu. She's like, I did.
Right. Totally independent.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's
rogue agent.
It's sick.
Well, you know, it's also funny because there's that guy who was Phoebe's cop boyfriend in Friends. I don't know his name. Michael Rappaport.
The guy who hit by a
Hot?
snowball?
Yeah, you got it.
Hot?
No, I didn't say hot. I said there's that guy. I'm just
Phoebe's hot
noting that
boyfriend.
these like
No, he's
C
not
and
hot.
D list
I know.
actors
Oh, Michael Rappaport.
just
Yeah.
want to like get attention.
Brett
So they're like,
Gelman.
oh, I know what I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll like support Israel during a genocide, and someone will post a video of me, and it will go viral.
It's like
Chelsea
Clint
Handler.
Eastwood at the
Chelsea
RNC. It's like Scott Baio and Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
I mean, they have no one,
Chelsea
right?
Handler's like, remember me? I still exist. I support genocide. Please remember
She's
me.
like-
And Amy Schumer's like, remember
Oh my
Martin
God.
Luther King?
Yeah.
God.
And then Martin Luther King's daughter was like, "You need to shut your mouth." She didn't say that. She was much nicer, but she
basically-
said
she
like, "My
basically
father would
said
be
that.
supporting a ceasefire." And Amy Schumer kept up her pinned tweet, which was trying to weaponize.
Just like he did
Martin
in
Luther King.
Vietnam, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
like he did in Vietnam.
Right, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
world hated him. I mean,
Right.
the U.S. hated him, let's be clear.
And a lot of liberals hated him
Yeah.
too.
Amy Schumer actually
Oh
did
my
this
God.
one segment or like sketch.
I'm glad she fell on her head. Didn't she fall on her
Oh,
head?
I don't know.
Or
I thought that
something?
was like an onion joke.
No, I think she actually fell on her neck or something.
She did this.
I mean, I'm non-violent, but that's still entertaining.
When she had her Comedy Central show, she did like this one episode about white girls and how they think everything in the universe is about them. And I feel like this would apply so well to Amy Schumer of
Right.
2024 or 2023 or whatever.
She's a notorious joke stealer.
She's like
too.
turned into the person
She
she
steals
used to
everything.
mock. She steals everything and
Land,
Land,
Palestinian
Palestinians'
land,
homes, jokes.
You know, actually, not that I'm calling her Israeli. but
Hillary
I think
Clinton's
she kind of
pantsuits.
She was scared for her child. I think.
Yeah,
I was like,
that
do you think
they were gonna-
paragliders are coming to Beverly Hills?
I think she lives in New York City?
No, I think she lives
Oh,
in
she
Beverly
lives in
Hills.
Beverly
There's
Hills.
enough goddamn
It's her
hostage
cousin who
posters in
lives-
LA that I honestly got confused. I thought that I was in Israel. I was
Right.
like, oh, who do
don't.
I call?
We're
I
on
think
the
I see one
recording
right
booth.
here. Like, is there a number? I mean, it's very strange.
Well, but the idea of stealing, like Israelis do kind of steal everything. They steal land, they steal the food, they even steal their organs. Like there's a skin bank. Israel has one of the biggest skin banks in the world, probably because they have to like test skin cancer treatments on skin because they get it so much because a lot of them are white and not indigenous to the land. But they do have the biggest skin bank and it's mostly Palestinian. A lot of countries have skin banks, but theirs is mostly Palestinian skin. So I'm just kind of like at a point where, do you want to just be Palestinians? Like, I don't know. You're stealing their skin, you're stealing their organs, you're stealing their land, you're stealing their food. Like, do you just want to be them?
Yeah.
Maybe we should just let them have a day where they
just be
Palestinian, then we could avoid all this bloodshed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, right?
Well
Yeah.
done. Well done.
Well, should we bring on, let's see, do we want more stuff on this, or do we want to open it up and
Well, I
bring
think
on
that it's
the
a
guests?
good, I think it's a good segue to bring on Claudia de la Cruz because
My
look,
president.
I think this is all,
Call her my president.
Because really where all of this is leading us is the presidential election. You guys excited?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I feel like we've lived through it before,
Yeah.
but it feels really new and exciting.
So we're going to bring up to the stage
There she is!
a...
Woo! Hello! I love this woman.
Claudia de la Cruz, who is an organizer, a theologian, a mother, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation's presidential candidate for 2024. So, Claudia, Claudia, before we ask you about your presidential campaign, how did you become the politicized person sitting in front of us today?
You like that story, Katie?
I do, yeah.
I know
It's
you
cute.
do. Well, first of all, I'm so excited. I've been excited for a month about this event. I admire, respect, and love y'all, so thank you all so much for having me.
Impeccable taste.
I have great taste. You'd be surprised. But in terms of like my political development, it's interesting. I was politicized through faith. I came to a liberation theology, faith community that was very interesting because most of the people in that space were atheists and socialists. From Latin America and the Caribbean primarily. And some of them were exiles from El Salvador because of the 10-year war in El Salvador. Some of them were here creating collectives to fight the political struggle in Venezuela with the Bolivarian circles. And so a lot of my politicization became part of their intention. They were very intentionally and strategically shaping me politically. And my parents are working class. My mom worked in the New York Department of Education for over 30 years in special education. So she woke up every day at 5 a.m. to go, tend to young kids, primary school. And my dad was a construction worker. And he was very clear about, he wasn't political. He's still not very political in terms of his activity. But he was very conscious of the fact that he was part of the class, the working class. He would often say, soy obrero, which means I'm a laborer. And would often show his hands, which means that if you do construction, if you've been around people who do construction, you see the crack in their hands. They often suffer from knee pains and back pain. And so it was very constant where he would share, I do this work with my hands, but you could work with your head. So don't miss the opportunity to go to school. Education was key in my house. Although my parents were in part of a political organization, they were really class conscious, I would want to say, and they're very proudly Caribbean. And so they were able to teach me that when you talk about America, you talk about a continent and not a country. And I guess the foundations for me to be able to absorb the politics came from my household, from a working class household. My grandmother worked the rice fields and the sugar fields along with Haitians. She survived the dictatorship of Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. So one thing she always said is, the United States isn't a friendly country to the Caribbean, because if they supported Trujillo, if that was their man, that means that they're not that good. And so she didn't have a concept of imperialism, but then she did, because she survived the dictatorship that the US backed. And so that was my process of becoming political. It was from working class family, and also in a space where people were class conscious and also fought for a vision of a socialist society.
Mm-hmm. When I look at the presidential elections, I've never felt like more detached from giving a flying fuck about these two candidates. I mean, there is no lesser evil application here, because there's no worse crime than genocide. Joe Biden's genocide Joe, right? He's gonna cement himself as that. I mean, there's the possibility that he'll win because horrible people with horrible policies are always rewarded in a messed up system. But it also kind of brings me to the question, like, why participate? Why even participate? Because it is such a farce. It's such a sham. Every year, it's billions of dollars more. It's who has the most money. It's who has the most eyeballs and who can do the most atrocious things. Why are you even running?
That's a great question. And I think if we see every election year, they will tell us this election is the election of our times. We cannot afford to lose to the far right. But then you get the Bidens of the world, because it's a project. Biden is part of a project, which is a US imperialist capitalist project. He is a representative of the project, but so is Obama. And so is the Democrat before him. And so we're constant, and so is Trump. Trump is also a representative of that project, even if he presents himself as the one, I was hearing his speech from December, I think it was in Baltimore, where he was saying, I am the protector of you. They're attacking me because they want to get to you, And he speaks in that way that kind of triggers everything that we have been historically taught. The racism, the xenophobia, like everything that America has been instructed to believe, he taps into that. But he is part of a project, and he's also the result of the deficiencies of the Democratic Party. Because if the Democratic Party were to actually do what it usually promises people, then he might not have such of a chance.
Right.
And so I think it's important in this particular moment in history, because this is like, the elections itself is not the most important election of our lifetime. Let's just start there. But it is a very important historical moment. And it's happening in a historical context that we should be paying attention to. They often refer to 2016 and they will refer to 2020 because they have no vision of the future. And they have no connection with the working class. We're living in a post-global health pandemic era, and COVID's still rampant. We're dealing with an economic crisis that is deep for working class people. I mean, billionaires have become trillionaires, but that's another story. We're dealing with people losing social programs and whatever has kept us afloat. We're dealing with, at post-George Floyd rebellions, we're dealing with young people.
Speaking of which, where's Kamala been?
Listen.
Haven't seen her in
sorry,
a year.
She's getting at the root. No, she's getting at the root sources.
Resident cop.
She's getting at the root sources of our immigration policies.
She's doing this. She's poking right now.
She's the one controlling the Weekend at Bernie's corpse? Okay.
I have no idea who they're talking about. I don't know.
Your girl Kamala.
My girl Kamala.
So I think, it's not the most important election, but it is a very significant and different historical moment. And it's a moment of awakening for the majority of people, not only working class people in the United States, but globally, because the US empire is in decline. US dominance is in decline. And when you see, the people in Gaza resisting, like they've resisted for 75 years plus. But when you see the level of resilience and strength, you gonna back up? You can't. You can't, because it's a matter of life and death. And we need to assume the reality of the United States with that same type of bravery. The Democratic Party is not gonna defend the working class with that bravery. They're not gonna do it. And so for us as socialists, it's really important to intervene precisely to lift that reality and to call things for what they are. They're a sham, but beyond that is like massive, it's a collective insanity we live in. And the more that we pay attention and legitimize the Democratic Party, the more we we participate in that insanity and give them the legitimacy that they shouldn't have because they want our vote. But we need to be able to build instruments of working class people that are for and by the working class, because the Democrats and the Republicans listen to Wall Street, corporations, and bankers. They do not have our will at heart, and they will never have our will. So it's not about Biden, it's not about Trump, it's about the US imperialist and capitalist projects. That's what they defend.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, first of all, I don't think I've ever heard your upbringing story, and I really love it. It makes me, I already love you so much, it makes me love you more as a person. But I remember distinctly one time you and I bonded over the fact that I was, there's a big power cuts. Lebanon has crazy power cuts. There's about 4 hours of or 6 hours if you're lucky, of state electricity a day, and then everybody has to rely on generators. And I was explaining, all of us were hanging out at one point, and I was explaining to someone, my intricate system of dealing with power cuts. And Claudia comes up and she's like, girl, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, Dominican Republic. She's like, it's third world. It's like normal in the third world. Like, we know power cuts. And I just like laughed because I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like across, and also in America, you just had power cuts, by the way, after a storm for like a week.
Are you going to seize the power companies?
Yeah, the top 100. That's how we're going to solve our problems. And we're not, again, we're like, that's a start. That's a start. I think it's important, and going back to the question of why run? We need to have the radical imagination of what we can do with what we produce as working class people. Those trillions of dollars that are being held hostage, and these billionaires are buying their 5th, 6th yacht and like doing all sorts of shit. Our people produce that money. Why aren't the Amazon workers running that company? They should be running it because they produce all that wealth. Why is the UAW trying to negotiate their own exploitation with people that are making $30 million a year? Like, we should seize that, because seizing it only means taking back what we produce and being able to provide what we can provide, because this country does not lack abundance. We have a lot of abundance. We just don't have access or power over it.
Well, I wanna just really quickly ask you about the fact that when we talk about the United States, it is seen as a very wealthy country because it is, like you mentioned, abundance. But it's also not a democracy, right? Like if it was, you would be on a debate stage with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, whatever other clown they want to put forward, but you're not gonna be because it's not a democracy. But also not like, I think America has one of the lowest maybe voting rate of a developed country. So there's a lot of people who don't even bother voting. I mean, it's also crazy. We get one day to vote. It's not even
at night,
a weekend or at night.
At night.
Like it's during the work day. Like good luck. I don't know. Good luck having time to like go vote when you have a job. But on top of that, there's so many people who don't vote, and there's so many parts of the country that I'm always stunned by in the U.S. because like, I'm just like, wow, you know, everybody always talks about third world this, third world that, you know, but there's parts of this country where people are living in situations where they don't have like proper sewage systems outside their homes. And it's shocking.
Poisoned water.
Yeah, Flint, Michigan.
Yeah, when we think about homelessness, we usually think about people who like live in the streets, but think about the people that live literally 4 to 5 people in a 1-bedroom apartment, or people that are actually, and this is happening in this country, people who are actually renting beds. Like they work and they rent beds to be able to sleep on when the other person's out to work. Like this is happening in the wealthiest country in the world. And these two-party system does not give a flying fuck about working class people. In fact, when they go and they do like their, debates, they don't talk about working class issues. They don't talk about solving those problems. They're usually pointing fingers at each other and talking about this democracy that doesn't exist for the majority of people in this country.
Yeah, I mean, look at Richie Torres. He's like, he's a...
Why are you triggering me, Abby? Shit.
Richie Torres, for people don't know, he's a New York congressman.
He's a New York congressman.
Major
It's the
APAC
poorest.
From the Bronx.
From the
poorest district in the country.
Wind-up doll.
Where I'm from.
And all he does is talk about Israel.
Yeah, and pinkwash. He pinkwashes
his
Israel.
constituents in the Bronx like really care.
His constituents in the Bronx, from the Bronx, South Bronx, the poorest congressional district in the United States, they don't know who Richie Torres is. AIPAC knows.
Yeah, right. No,
Listen,
exactly.
Don't get me started.
Exactly. Go off. I mean, look, ever since I became politically active, I've always felt like the Democratic Party has had a gun to my head saying, your abortion rights.
That's right.
Your abortion rights unless you vote.
We're going to codify them.
And
so
so it's
took
like,
them away under a Democrat.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy. Like looking back on it, it's like, wait, what is the blackmail now? What's the emotional blackmail? Because at that
Supreme
point,
Court
maybe the Republicans will commit. Wait.
Yeah.
Check. Done.
But no, I think that what Abby's getting
just
at
vote
is,
your way out of it, right?
There's the vote blue no matter who.
Vote blue no matter who. Yeah. I mean, when we're looking at the presidential race, and it's shocking to see like the rehash, like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's a walking, talking corpse being puppeted by God knows who.
Yeah.
He's not even that walking.
He's not even that
He
walking.
keeps tripping. They had to like modify the stairs on Air Force One.
He's like
to
a
keep that
nodding
tripping.
corpse, yeah.
And Donald Trump, I mean,
Who's like a loaf, some kind of meatloaf.
Should we show some
Yeah,
videos?
let's show some video. Let's show. Should we show a video or do you?
No, let's do it.
Okay.
Abby's triggered. We need to show
I'm
some
triggered.
videos.
We're all triggered. We're all triggered.
All right, let's
Let's hear from Donald Trump and hear his platform.
Oh, do you want to hear Trump first or
Trump first?
Biden?
Well, wait,
first?
hold on. I think we have because queued up. I think we should.
Okay.
We have Biden.
Yeah, this is
inspiring.
This is
This
our
is inspiring.
opposition.
For the vote blue no matter who
Yeah, right,
people.
Let's see what he's got.
This is the guy standing between Trump and democracy. Apparently, let's take a look at what he has to say about Palestine.
Oh, God.
Controlled Gaza Health Ministry says Israeli forces have killed over 6,000 Palestinians, including 2,700 children. You've previously asked Netanyahu to minimize civilian casualties. Do these numbers say to you that he is ignoring that message?
What they say to me is I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed. And that's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against Israel. And it's against their interest when that doesn't happen. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
First of all, how insulting is it that the journalist was like, the Hamas-run health ministry says
I have no
Does
notion
he ever
the
talk about the
Palestinians are telling
Likud
the
run
truth.
anything?
Yeah, Likudnik run anything. Remember when Joe Biden said to a guy who questioned him, I think it was like
Shut
about
your
immigration
face?
or something. No, he was like, you're
Shut up, fatty."
sedentary.
Oh, sedentary. Yeah,
he
that
was
was the
like,
one he was like, "Listen,
see the
fat,
problem?
listen, fat."
Fats. You're sedentary. That's the problem.
He's like, you want to get
And then
up
he
here?"
challenged him to like a push-up contest.
Yeah,
It's just
so
like, what on
ridiculous.
earth is happening?
Yeah, then he called some other one a stone-faced pony.
See,
Remember
that solidified my vote for him. I was like, yeah,
Does anyone here remember Corn Pop?
Bad dude, a very bad dude.
Very bad dude. Corn Pop was a very bad dude. But so
He
that's
called him Esther Williams.
I mean-
that gives you a sense of how in touch the guy is.
Look, this is 2 months into this that Joe Biden still was saying he saw the 40 beheaded babies,
Oh,
right? I mean,
no.
when he said that, I literally thought Netanyahu had rendered like an AI image. Because I was like,
It's not just that he said that once. And when he said that, this is very important. He said that against the advice of his staff, who told him, we don't think that's necessarily true. Okay, fine, he said it. Then he said it a second time after that, and then he said it a third time. So this is a guy, remember, I thought Trump was the one who was supposed to be the liar, the fake news guy. But Biden is allowed to lie out of his ass, and no one will call him on it ever. And if you do, you're helping Trump.
But he said he was a Zionist, though.
That he is honest about.
He said
That's
he was
not
a
a
Zionist,
lie.
and he didn't say it just now.
No, he said it a bunch of times.
A whole bunch of times, and he said it in 1983.
Yeah, and if Israel didn't exist, we'd have to create one.
He meant it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to believe these people when they tell us who they are. Like, this is the most toxic relationship we've ever been in, and we continue to be in it. Like, really?
Okay, it is. It's like being with someone. It's like being with someone, and the women in the room know what I'm talking about. It's like being with someone who you know sucks, but he tells you, oh, but you don't, like, everyone else sucks.
Right.
More than me.
What are your other options?
Like, what are your options? I'm broke. I don't do anything for you.
No one's gonna
I don't know how to fix anything.
No
I
one's
don't
gonna
cook. I
love
don't
you like I love you.
Yeah.
And
No one's gonna love you like
I love you. And you're like, oh.
It's like, at least I won't grab you by the pussy.
However, I will say this. So I also don't want to downplay that Trump does pose a different kind of danger. And I think we have a couple clips and I want to hear your response because that's what we're going to hear throughout this election.
Yeah.
It's okay. Biden. That's his new name, by the way.
Biden.
No, I like that for him. Biden, okay, we're going to hear, oh, Biden, yeah, okay, so he committed a genocide. Yes. However, this guy will commit more. Yeah. And so I that's what we're going to hear. I want to hear your response to that, but first let's play a couple clips of Trump.
Let's hear Trump's
Let's hear Trump's plan for the country.
America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you sympathize with jihadists,
I like the music.
We don't want you in our country,
Very
and
sad.
you're not going to be getting into our country. I will cancel the student visas. Hamas,
All the Hamas students.
college campuses. The college campuses are being taken over and all of the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protest this month. Nobody's
At
ever
least he's
seen anything
entertaining.
like
I'll give him that.
Come 2025, we will find you and we will deport you. And
I mean, I'm
members,
sold.
One of the things we're going to do on one of my platforms that people don't pick up as much as they should, though, but we're going to build an iron dome over our country because we want to protect ourselves. We're giving other countries, we give iron domes to other countries, but we don't do it to all made in the USA. You know, I had no wars. I'm the only president in 72 years. I didn't have any wars.
I don't know what to say to you.
Oh yeah, pause
wait,
that.
So I think, okay, a couple of things here. Like, I think, obviously, that's real. Like, we laugh at it, but when Trump is threatening to deport people, not to say Biden isn't, because he's continued deportations,
big time.
all the stuff that Democrats do but cry about when Republicans are president. But Trump is threatening to ruin people's lives. So I'm curious, like, what is your response to that thing that's going to be used, the gun to our head that Abby was talking about?
Like you're helping Trump if you're taking away a vote from Biden. That thing.
It's fear-mongering, right? Like, the Democrats don't earn votes. If you earn a vote, it's because you actually do something to earn it. What they do is fear-monger and bribe people and bully people into voting for them. And they put this threat out, which is a real threat. The threat of fascism, the threat of the far right is real, but it's not new. It's not a new threat, and it's something that they utilize constantly, every 4 years, to say, vote blue no matter who. And to what extent do we allow that to continue to be the narrative? To what extent do we continue to, allow ourselves to be used, abused by this two-party system that does not do anything for us? So when they are talking about, now is like, it's the whole democracy, the defense of democracy. And they'll utilize, January 6th and what happened and all the horrible things that Trump did. And the reality is that another term of Trump would be horrific, because that means that they would be coming back more organized to do even more harm than what they did. But do you really want to follow Biden to that fight? Like, really? Like, following Biden will only bring back the far right. And so I think we need to start thinking beyond this two-party system that has been offered to us, that has been imposed on us by a ruling class that does not care about our concrete conditions as working class people. They don't offer solutions, because Biden could have, in the 2 first years of his term, codified Roe versus Wade. He could have legalized abortion nationally, and he didn't do that.
You mean he could have done the same thing that he sidestepped Congress to send Israel all these weapons to do things for us?
I mean, you have a president that bypasses Congress.
To do really good things, like kill people.
Right, to kill people, but does not think of doing executive orders to actually support working class people's needs in this country, who has billions of dollars to throw to a war that, first of all, they completely discouraged negotiations from, which is the proxy war in Ukraine, because they discouraged it and blocked it, because it's in their interest to be able to advance NATO. Right?
And weaken Russia.
And weaken Russia. And they did that, and that's fine. They support economically, like, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars towards Israel that did not start October 8th. We're talking about billions, almost $4 billion a year. New York State is $300 million that goes straight to Israel, while people here are in deep economic crises that have to actually make very, very horrible decisions, whether they eat or they pay for childcare. Like, you have 2 million children, babies, who lost access to healthcare in this country. And so if we're not infuriated in the lack of decency, the lack of humanity of the Democratic Party, and we don't build a third option, then we're playing ourselves. We're totally playing ourselves. And we cannot continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. The Republicans and the Democrats are not going to help us. We need to build our own instruments.
Absolutely. It inspires me so much to see Gen Z leading this struggle, like leading the fight against genocide, against apartheid, being out in the streets, and they do not watch corporate media.
That's right.
Right? It's totally obsolete, the political establishment. We know that the Biden administration, whatever the outcome is, they will blame the left and they'll blame the youth. But I think that just shows that it is changing.
That's right.
And that people are not going to buy into this anymore. They're not going to be gaslit. And we are going to fight for a revolution in this country.
And ultimately, electoral politics have never been the force of change. They have never. Everything we've gotten because people have organized movements to receive that. Right. So we do the work and they get the credit.
Right.
Like, we need to be able to build a force of working class people in this country that not only build the solutions, but have power and control over what we produce and over our future.
It's also so funny because you get all, sorry, I was I love it. I don't want to put my mic down.
Are we all doing that?
Okay. It's so funny because all these people try to bully, vote shame people. And it's like, if you actually cared about getting Biden in, why not pressure that one person? Like when it comes to Palestine, why not pressure him to stop the genocide? As opposed to this amorphous group of people you have no control over. It's almost as if Biden has no agency.
Yeah, and he has all the agency.
Right, of course.
Like a phone call from the White House to Netanyahu would have stopped it.
Like Ronald Reagan did.
And Biden needs to be punished.
He's a war criminal. He's a war criminal, and he's decided to be a war criminal over and over and over. He's decided to be a war criminal over 20,000 times.
Yep.
That's how many
Every
times.
bomb.
I guess he is more experienced than Trump then.
Listen, yeah.
Well, can we just nip that in the bud that Trump's like, oh, I never started a war? Yeah, that's because Iran didn't retaliate against your ass.
That's right.
And that's because Venezuela didn't retaliate against your ass. And do you want to go over the draconian sanctions regime? And do you want to go over the drone strikes
which
that you
Biden
increased 400%?
hasn't removed, of course, but yeah.
So please, let's
Biden
no.
added more sanctions on
Trump
Cuba.
is not more quote unquote anti-war. He would be giving the exact same carte blanche to Israel that Biden is doing.
Although he's mad at Netanyahu because Netanyahu didn't like go along the Soleimani plan with him.
Wait, Biden's mad at Netanyahu?
No. Trump is mad at Netanyahu. He's like, he's very weak. He's very weak. Because he
Netanyahu, he stays in Jared Kushner's apartment when he comes here. I mean, that's how close these people are
By
together.
the way,
and
totally
brings his laundry with him.
Off topic, but you guys, the Netanyahu and his wife, they schlep their laundry from Israel to the White House when they come to the United States. It's not even it sounds like a punchline about like your dirty laundry. They literally bring their dirty laundry with them in bags.
Maybe it comes out smelling like extra special if you get it done at the White House.
That
Yemeni guy is going to turn into the dirty house.
That's an anti-Semitic hate crime right there, that he does that.
But
why would you do that?
You know, I gotta say though, like I know that we make fun of Biden for being half asleep, and a lot of the times he does seem like it, and he's like falling. But I do think it's important to recognize that you said he has repeatedly said he's a Zionist. He says if there wasn't an Israel, we'd have to create an Israel. He means that. He's an ardent American imperialist. He basically supported segregation back in the day. He's a segregationist.
Anti-abortion.
And also, like,
he also said that busing was, he said that integration was like a rejection. No, he said that busing was a rejection of Black is beautiful.
Wait, what?
I'm not kidding. He said that like busing is bad because it was integrating schools, and he was kind of trying to take the anti-assimilationist Black is beautiful. Like he
leave
literally
it alone.
pretended that.
Leave Black alone. Let it stay together. Like, is that what I don't even understand.
Yeah. He was pretending to be. Yeah.
This guy's crazy.
Everyone in their spots. You don't need to mix and mingle.
It's like literally the worst possible person to be manning the ship right now during this, because even I saw a Times of Israel article that said, the former Prime Minister Menachem Begin, and he was even like Joe Biden. He was like this rogue senator got up and actually said like Israel should, essentially in so many words. Check out the article. I shit you not. Joe Biden like was the rogue voice being like no, like women and children are totally legitimate targets like for Israel, and even Menachem Begin was like no, that's going too far. Right.
But you know what the crazy piece? Crazy. Yeah, the crazy piece is also that the Democrats are not doing anything to kind of to stop him
and look at Bernie.
Or to like hide him out and say, look, you're not gonna run this term because you're just bad. Right. You're bad for business. Yeah. Like they're not doing that. In fact, they're doing the opposite.
Yeah.
They're doing the opposite. And so I think we need to pay a lot of attention. Like they rather have Genocide Joe confront the far right.
Right.
Which means literally, my grandmother would say in Spanish, and I'll translate it, tú estás haciendo la cama para que el otro se acueste. Like, you're basically setting up the bed for the other one to come sleep on it, which is often what they do. Like, making it easy for the far right to come and do their term. And so I think we need to be really aware of how they've been playing us for as long as they've been.
But it's going to be
in a
your
lot of
fault
the
and Jill
polls.
Stein's fault,
Right.
right? It's
Yeah,
not going to
and
be the half of the
Susan
country.
Sarandon, don't forget Susan Sarandon.
And Cornell
Yeah.
West. And Cornell West. And us for doing the show.
That's right. Russia Today watchers.
And RT, yeah.
But it's like,
Russia
what about
Today,
the other half of the country that are eligible to vote that do not participate? It's the non-voter population. There's no incentive at all to reach people who have completely disassociated themselves from the political process.
People are hopeless around the electoral process because the electoral process has proven to be a sham with it in the capitalist system. And so more than offering people elections, we need to offer people building a movement. Like participating actively in building what we need. How is it that in the so-called democracy, we have two parties that control everything? Ballot access is shit. Like getting to petitioning, getting signatures, and I'm saying as someone who is in the process of doing that, it is meant for you not to have a third party option. Are we okay with that? When you talk about Venezuela as supposedly an authoritarian government, and these people run even 21 different people for the presidential campaign, and it's one of the most rigorous processes for election. They talk about Cuba. Come on, man. Like, you had two parties, basically two heads of one body.
Yep.
Well, they always are silencing and ignoring the third parties. But what's so fascinating is that even within the two-party system, the Republicans are much more Democratic than the Democrats are. Because say what you will about RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson and Cenk Uygur apparently, but he's running. But the Republicans at least talk.
Breaking news.
The Republicans at least have talk about the other people, and they have debates. We haven't heard anything from the other candidates. And the media totally ignores them. I mean, the media had DeSantis on all the time. They had on people who were
Vivek
polling,
Ramaswamy,
who
who
was
was
polling lower than Williamson. And
Deal cut out,
it was just amazing how they didn't even have any. No one was shaming the media because the media controls the narrative, so no one even realized.
Yeah, just
that
making
these
them
people were
obsolete.
actually running.
Right,
Yeah.
they render them just completely obsolete.
Irrelevant,
And that's what the media does. That's what the corporate media does. It will just completely ignore you. You know, Israel will kill you.
You're not getting.
The U.S. media will just
ignore
render you.
I mean, how many CNN
And let
requests
Israel
for
kill you.
interviews are you
By ignoring
getting
them.
each day?
Well, she couldn't do one tonight because of us. That's why I didn't want to book
She
you.
had to decline tonight. She had to decline CNN tonight to be here.
Yeah.
But I know we're getting to where we want to wrap up here. So I think what I'm hearing from Claudia is we need to this is our form of resistance here. Is building something different, building something that serves the working class, that serves the people of this country. And I think the theme maybe of tonight is the importance of resistance.
And international solidarity.
And so I think there is a clip we want to play because the proceeds from tickets to come here, and I think there's something going around for if you want to donate more, are going to We Are Not Numbers. So if you're not familiar with We Are Not Numbers, it is an organization based in Gaza that was co-founded by Refaat Alareer, who is a Palestinian writer and intellectual that was assassinated.
Professor,
poet, translator, who was
father of six,
who was assassinated by Israel last month in December, after spending the months prior to that basically running for his life and his family's life from shelter to shelter. For a long period of time, he refused to leave Gaza City when the Israelis were demanding everybody leave. He appeared many times and contributed a great deal to the Electronic Intifada, which I hope everybody here is familiar with. If you're not, please check it out. It's an incredible outlet, and the people there are wonderful. And he was staying in a shelter with his family, and he received a call from the Israelis in early December threatening him, saying, "We are going to kill you." And so he didn't want to, everybody in the shelter, hundreds, I think thousands of people maybe were sheltering here. So he left to protect the people in the shelter and went to hide at his sister's house. thinking that he'd be safe there. And the Israelis somehow managed to find him or know he was there, and they bombed the house and killed his sister and her 4 children and him. And this
is surgical strike, like his apartment floor.
The apartment was bombed, but the building was not bombed.
They targeted him for assassination, and they succeeded. And I mean, you know, when you think about what the people in Gaza are enduring, they are enduring the worst situation imaginable to humanity. They are on the run constantly in the unsafest conditions imaginable.
And then they go to places where they're told are the safe zones, and then
and they still get bombed. They still get bombed. They go to the safe zones, which are really just death zones, evacuation zones, as they call them. And there's just disease spreading. There's no water. There's no food. There's a recent statistic released that 4 out of the 5 people in the world that are starving right now are actually in Gaza. So these are the last couple months of this guy's life. But despite all of the horrors he endured, I think we need to remember some of his last words. And so we want to play a clip of Refaat, who appeared regularly on Electronic Intifada's live streams, which you should also check out because they do regular live streams to discussing what's happening in Gaza and the broader region. So can we play that clip, please?
And this is Ali Abu Nima from Electronic Intifada.
As you have said, as Khalil said, he doesn't know how to face his children. I don't know how to face you and to face people in Gaza. And I don't know how to say to you that I'm sorry we failed.
Thank you, Ali. I think we didn't fail. We did not. And that's when it comes to end. No, we didn't. We didn't submit to their barbarity. We didn't submit to their brutality. And even when this attack came when Gaza was in its weakest time possible. Look at what they did to the most invincible army in the area, the 4th strongest army in the world. The humiliation. But it's not only about that. This is not where we get our pride. We get our pride from staying principled at a time when everybody is not.
So it makes me think of what you were saying about the fact that look at what people in Gaza are basically enduring and still fighting. I mean, it's his last days. This is what he was saying. So.
I think if there's something that Gaza has done as a people is rehumanize us. Like Gaza has deeply and I don't want us to take that lightly. We live in a system where they tell us this is happening far away. This has no connection to your life. You don't need to care. And you've seen people by the millions all across the globe demanding that this war in Gaza stops. That is rehumanizing people. And not only is it rehumanizing people, it's re-energizing movements. And that's what I mean. We cannot experience Gaza, not in the way that Gaza has, obviously, the people in Gaza experience it, but we cannot see what we've seen and unsee it. Like, we've seen it. We've witnessed it. And we cannot be left unchanged by that. We cannot. The people who have been killed, the over 20,000 souls that have become martyrs, that glory to the martyrs, but glory means being able to honor their lives. It means changing the system that has allowed for Gaza to be in the situation in which Gaza is. It means stopping the U.S. war machine. And there is no one that could play a much more historic role than the people living in the belly of the beast. No one else. We are responsible for stopping that beast. We are the ones that need to create that dent to allow people in Palestine to breathe, to allow people in Cuba to breathe, to allow people in Venezuela to leave, and for our own breathing. Like, this country pumped, in the Biden administration, pumped more money into the military, pumped more money into police departments. 2023 saw many more killings of black and brown youth on the streets, even though we might not hear it. Precisely because we too live in an open air prison. We too live in we know about displacement. We know about surveillance. We know about lack of access to health care. While our money, our tax money pays for the colonizing body force in Palestine to have health care, to have housing that doesn't belong to them. And so it's a sense of morality, but it's also a sense of connection. Like, our lives are connected to the lives of the millions of people in Palestine, those who have been killed and those who are still alive, and we are responsible for them.
And their deaths cannot go in vain. And every baby, every child, every person who has died, they had dreams, they had hopes, families extinguished. We have to keep fighting for them.
That's right.
Their deaths cannot go in vain.
And I wanted to read something that Refaat had DM'd me one of the last times that we spoke over Twitter. I said, is there anything we can do from over here? And he said, thank you for offering more pressure on the media, more coverage, more Palestinian voices, more protests. Hopefully Israel is curbed ASAP. So that's what we all have to do.
I think the takeaway from this entire evening and the very moving words you just spoke are what Abby just said. Do not let these deaths, these murders, these people be in vain. This is like a sacrifice that will change the world forever. It has. And it has already, and we cannot allow it to happen and nothing change. Something, so much has to change. So we have so much to learn from people like Refaat. And we also have to remember the US is escalating this. They're daring Iran, they're daring the Yemenis, they're daring Hezbollah, and there might come a time when a bigger war breaks out and they will use all the same tropes and they will let Israel do all the same things and they will start doing the same things. We have to be ready for that.
That's right.
I don't want to live in a world where this is allowed.
Right.
This is not the world that I accept. Mm-hmm. So unless we fight to change this is not the world that I'm going to be comfortable living in.
And our fight is in different fronts. Like, all of us occupy space. People have platforms, people have communities, people have, we have been told for many years that giving our votes away is the only political act that we have. And that is bullshit. Nothing can be further from the truth. Nothing can be further from the truth. We have to reclaim the history of struggle that we have in this country that has been intentionally robbed from our consciousness. We need to reclaim it. Yesterday, people were having all sorts of debates about Martin Luther King. When Martin Luther King was shot, he was gearing more towards socialism and talking about the economic system, talking against militarism, talking about white supremacy as all connected. He was talking against the war in Vietnam very clearly. And he also had words to say about Israel and its 1967 expansion. He had words to say
Amy
about
Schumer.
that.
He was planning an occupation, a full-scale, Occupy Wall Street prototype.
And he died at a labor protest.
And he died.
Assassinated.
He was assassinated in 1968 because he touched what the United States does not like people touching, which is the economics. Once you touch the economics and you start talking about economic power, they will shoot you.
I mean, look at Yemen. Look at Yemen. Yemen messed with their economy a little bit.
Just a little bit.
And they were like, drop
We're
the
gonna
bombs.
bomb.
Yeah.
Drop the bombs.
So we killed
When you're a hammer,
people for
everything's a
not.
nail.
It's just insane. Like, I think a lot of people probably think that Yemen killed people because of the way they talk about targeting.
Zero.
They've killed 0 people, and those are the people we've responded to militarily.
The U.S. has killed at least 15 Yemenis in their bombings, both on their ships and in their
But you
actual
know what?
lands.
They can't kill solidarity. Because Yemen was like, you know what? Y'all want to do this? Let's go.
They were like, bring
They were like, bring the whole team. We got you. That's solidarity.
World War III, yeah.
Back
Bring
to that
them on.
song. Back to that song.
Back to that great song.
I mean, Claudia, it's so... Your words are so poetic, and also they ring so true, especially when we see labor unions and all of the union efforts that have really ramped up, all of the labor struggles and all of the linking together of that international solidarity with Palestinians, understanding the link from Israeli forces training our police forces at home, the over-policing of our neighborhoods. And so it's that international solidarity, it's that international understanding. And it's the struggle that we have to connect all of our struggles, right? And we have to coalesce, we have to put those bridges down and connect with each other. Because again, like, this is not, humanity is dead if we allow this to be the new normal, and if we allow mass murder and mass death to be normalized. And it already has been.
I just want to say, yes, so much horrible shit has happened. But in a weird way, did I say, we're not allowed to say shit?
No,
Okay.
no.
I mean, we've said a whole bunch of things, Katie.
That's
your like a whole bunch of things.
That's your line. That's your line.
That's where you draw the line?
I was going to say.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was like, but I was waiting for her.
Well,
her
I've just never felt, in a weird way, as messed up as the world is right now, I've never felt more hopeful.
This moment is right for revolution. Because let me tell you something. If you leave this place, leave with this. Karina says this all the time. That's the hopeful person she is.
That's her running mate.
Yeah,
Claudia's running mate.
That's my heart. She says, revolution always seems impossible. But when it's done, it was inevitable. Revolution always seems impossible. You talk to the people who made the revolution of 1804. Well, you can't talk to them. But you go back in history to 1804 in Haiti. I'm sure those folks didn't think that was possible, and they made it happen. You think about Cuba, they probably thought that, oh my God, like, are we gonna be able to do this? And they did it. And you probably never thought that October 7th would happen, but it did. And it's changed us forever. And so revolution is impossible, but when it's done, it was what? Inevitable.
Free Palestine.
Yeah.
Free
Free
Gaza.
Palestine.
Free Yemen.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
out,
you
you
so
guys.
Woo! The Global South story. Yeah. You gotta bring the Global South story.
Oh, donations. If anyone wants to give donations to We Are Not Numbers, Zoe is walking around with a red bucket. Thank you, everyone.